Welcome to Radio 815, the podcast dedicated to examining the work of writer director J.J. Abrams. I'm your host for this week. My name is Marcelo Inostroza, joined as always by my fellow co-host, Matt Crandall. And on today's edition of the show, we will continue to talk about 11/22/63. The episode up for this week is episode 6, entitled Happy Birthday, Lee Harvey Oswald. So, Matt, do you want a piece of cake?
If it's Lee Harvey Oswald's birthday cake, I'm going to take a hard pass on that. But here we are as good old genius Jake continues his mission. And we start with a time jump because this episode begins in October of 63, which I think is about 6 months from where we left off after the whole Johnny slashes whatever her name is face. I've forgotten her name. But Sadie, when Sadie got slashed. So, and we pick up and we start focusing on Oswald as he gets a job at the Dallas Book Depository, which is a famous thing that happened and an important piece of history that we know. And from there, we realize his wife has kind of left him. She's pregnant with his child, but she's living somewhere else. And Bill, as soon as I find out that Marina has moved out, I'm like, oh my God, I just know Bill is fucking up this whole thing. Like, I'm starting to really feel like Jake got the wrong guy to help him. And as this episode progresses, I really feel like Jake roped in the wrong guy to help him on this mission because Bill is not focused on the mission. He's focused on this woman that he has fallen in love with when he really shouldn't have ever gotten involved. But what are you thinking as, yes, it's, we're picking up with Oswald months after and seeing him meet with this FBI agent and his wife has moved out and she just needs a nicer environment. A lot of stuff has taken place in the 6 months we weren't there.
I am really happy that finally, for good God fucking sake, they're actually focusing on the story. But the thing that I'm not happy about is something that you mentioned, the fact that Bill is fucking Lee Harvey Oswald's wife. Now I don't blame Bill for doing that, but I really think that Jake should have found somebody else to help him and to be complicit with him during this mission to save JFK. Like, for example, it really would have been cool if at the beginning of the show, right, Jake came across someone who was campaigning for Kennedy. Like, if he found somebody in Jody that was campaigning for Kennedy and to rope that individual into the whole thing. Because if you get somebody like that is more amenable to believing time travel and is more amenable to helping the possible assassination of a senator that Jake can say, if we save him, he's going to be president. Like, I knew that this was going to happen and I fucking hated it. I couldn't stand it. I really couldn't.
Yeah, it's very, very frustrating. And again, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this episode that's interesting, but also really pisses me off and makes me feel like we got the two worst guys in the world working together to try and stop this horrific event. And early on, Jake and Bill have a conversation where Bill says, do you think there's been a butterfly effect because you came to the past and maybe Oswald isn't the guy? Maybe just you being here has changed everything. And Jake says, well, that can't be because we haven't interacted with Oswald even one time. So, like, we haven't done anything to intervene. And, of course, we know that that's not true because Bill's talked to Oswald. He got the Marx manifesto from him. Like, tons of shit has happened that Bill has been keeping secret. And I get frustrated that Jake and Bill have terrible communication between each other. But also, the way we saw Bill acting last episode I can't believe that Jake has just let Bill run around continuing to do his stuff without trying to keep this guy in line. Now, we know that Jake is kind of distracted because Sadie needs this surgery to fix the scar that she has on her face, and surgery is expensive, so he's trying to get money to make this surgery possible. But he hasn't been keeping a good eye on Bill and checking in on what this guy is doing. And the moment later in the episode where he comes home and Bill is at Oswald's birthday party and he hears on the tape and then he goes and he confronts him, I'm just like, dude, I can't believe you're such an idiot that you didn't know all of this was going on under your nose. But also when he goes upstairs, he's in such a state that he's not doing a very good job of keeping conspicuous and like not raising any suspicions about what him and Bill are doing, because he's having kind of a meltdown in front of all these people. And I'm like, dude, you gotta play things better. And the other thing that Jake does in this episode is we see him placing more bets. Does he not remember how horribly the betting thing went for him before? When we saw him get ran out of town, almost got murdered because he placed too big of a bet. And here he is back at that thing to get the money for Sadie's surgery. And we just know if we see him placing these bets again, shit is going to go sideways. And wouldn't you know it, by the end of the episode, the reason shit goes sideways is because fucking Bill is doing the same thing and they didn't talk to each other. And there's so much of this show that if these characters just talk to each other, and I find it kind of hard to believe that Jake would be so distracted by his relationship with Sadie and the surgery that like he's not even having, half hour of chats, meaningful chats with Bill when he gets home. Like, does he not realize that when he met Bill, Bill was an emotionally unstable guy with a lot of baggage, and he got roped into this crazy scenario, and the fact that he believed it all tells me that Bill is a little off, because if some guy tells me he's from the future, it's going to take a lot to really convince me, and Bill is won over pretty quickly. But the fact that Jake isn't doing nightly check-ins, weekly check-ins with the guy that he has roped into this whole thing is blowing my mind. Jake is so incompetent that I did think this episode was better than last week's, but I'm still super frustrated at how annoying our dynamic dum-dums are at the center of the episode.
Yeah, at this point, at this point, I wouldn't put it past the writers if they finish the whole series by Jake trying to stop, Oswald, because he's still looking for proof to confirm if Oswald is going to be involved in the plot to assassinate Candy. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up dying, or if something else happens to him because of that. If Sadie ends up dying because of Jake's ineptitude of hiring such a buffoon like Bill, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if something like that happens. Now, here's the thing. You're right. Jake should have checked in with Bill on a consistent basis. Wasn't Jake aware that this could happen? Based on what you said, Bill is highly unstable, right? And I'm like, but also I'm like, Jake, what the fuck are you there for? Are you there to fall in love with a 1950s woman, or to stop the assassination of JFK that will hopefully make your world better? What are you there for? What the fuck are you there for? So everything that's happening to Jake in this episode is earned, but it's so fucking stupid. But I keep saying to myself, I said it last week or 2 weeks ago, why the fuck is Bill in the fucking show in the first place? If the writers wanted to give the Jake character a smart person, I'll say it again. When Jake first got to Jody, they should have planted somebody from the Candy campaign in Jody, and then have them find a way to rope them in with Jake's plan. And if you do that, a person like that, who you tell, if we save this person from getting assassinated now, your candidate can save the future. A person like that is more, it makes more sense that a person like that will be more dedicated to the cause than falling in love with some girl who's being, than falling in love with a girl who's being beat up by their husband.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound cruel, but it just is so frustrating.
Well, and I don't mean to sound cruel either, but I would say the one thing that keeps bothering me about this whole thing as well is that when Jake and Bill have that talk about butterfly effect and whatever, Bill's like, hey, listen, if you think it's Oswald, just fucking kill the guy. And Jake's like, no, I'm trying to find a way to do this without murder. But why? Because, yes, he might actually kill an innocent man if Oswald is framed or whatever. But if we take him off the board this late in the game, then I think it actually would just make things easier to then try and, like, if he was the guy, we've saved the day. And if he wasn't, then we can try and be positioned in such a way to figure out who it actually is and fix that. But of course, as this whole episode goes on and the stuff between Bill and Jake ramps up, and at that birthday party when Jake is acting completely not chill, knocks over a lamp, and the lamp has a bug in it, and it's a bug that Bill and Jake have put there. And Oswald sees it, and he's like, the fucking FBI are surveilling me. How dare they? Oh my God. And like, it's like, oh my gosh, is this part of what radicalizes Lee Harvey Oswald and makes him want to do this? Because he's actually, for the most part, he's a wife-beating asshole, but we haven't seen evidence that he is the trigger man yet. And then this happens. And I'm like, this wouldn't have happened if Jake didn't go up there and cause a scene with Bill. And now this might be one of the things that leads Lee Harvey Oswald down this path. But then also the other thing that does happen, which we kind of got a sense when I've said that Jake picked the wrong guy to team up with, he really might have picked the wrong guy to team up with, because when Jake finds out that Bill has been seeing Marina, they like fight it out, and fucking Bill pulls a gun and he says, like, you know, why is it fair that you get to go and have a girlfriend and I can't do anything, and I'm in love with Lee Harvey Oswald's wife, and fuck you, fuck JFK, fuck all of this. And I'm like, this guy might now be the guy who wants to help kill JFK to frame Oswald, to get Oswald out of the picture so he can move in with his wife. And none of this would have happened if Jake hadn't shown up, or if Jake had had a competent plan, or if Jake hadn't done a number of things. So knowing now that, like, and even there's a moment where Jake's like, I don't know, maybe this guy's the second shooter. And I'm like, fuck, I can't believe you have done this, where now JFK might not have gotten assassinated at all if you never came back in time. Maybe you coming back in time is this loop that actually sets off this whole thing. And, you know, if we get dwelling on that paradox stuff too much, it can explode your brain. But I was just like, oh, of course. And they keep saying, like, you fuck with the thing, the past fucks back. And I'm like, but maybe it's it's just literally that Jake is so inept that this was always the way it was meant to be, and he was never able to stop it, and he actually trying to stop it is what caused it in the first place in some fucked up timey-wimey bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned timey-wimey bullshit, and that's exactly what I'm thinking at this point, right now. But but at this point, I just wish that Bill can be taken off the board, because when it's brought up that he can be the second shooter, that makes me nervous. I'm like, is he going to be the guy on the grassy knoll, or is he going to be an individual that is radicalized by Oswald in some way? So I'm interested to see that as well. But the writing in this series is very, very frustrating, and I understand how difficult writing is, guys. Believe me, I'm a writer, so I know how difficult it is. But I keep thinking to myself, just two things. Don't introduce Bill as a character and make James Franco smarter. That's all they had to do. And like, I don't understand why they chose to.
Part of my frustration, and of course, as as you mentioned, it would be nice if they could take Bill off the board, and that's also what Jake thinks. And Jake's like, I've seen Terminator 2. I've got a great idea. Somebody raving about future and time travel and bullshit. Let's put them in the nut house. And so he's like, Bill, come with me. Marina's in labor and she's asking for you. Let's go to the hospital. And so they go to the hospital and Jake gets Bill committed. And Bill's screaming that, Jake has secrets and he does all this stuff. And Jake's like, he can't sign himself out. Like, I'm the only one who can. And the guy's like, yeah, this guy's nuts. We're keeping him. Don't worry about it. And so I'm like, okay, good. But I know that that's not going to go smooth. That's not going to, we couldn't have possibly spent all this time with the Bill Marina thing to just have him now be in a rubber room for the next 2 months and have everything go off without a hitch. So I'm waiting to see how that other shoe is going to drop now that Jake realizes that Bill might be the friggin' second shooter on the grassy knoll. And then the nice kind of spots of this moment are that after Jake told Sadie the truth 6 months ago, they have been getting closer, and she doesn't have all the details, but she believes that he's from the future, and she knows that there's some stuff that he's doing. He's not telling her everything, though. He's giving her, like, just enough for her not to, like, freak out. And so I do like that they seem like they are in a good place for the most part, but that you fuck with the past fucks back kind of comes to a head in a weird Final Destination-like moment with Sadie, where she is going to get the final surgery to fix that scar on her face. Of course, when she's like, okay, Jake, this is my final surgery. I'm going to be done with hospitals. Can't wait for nothing to go wrong. See you in a couple hours. And I'm like, okay, what's going to happen here? And as Jake and Art from Justified walk through some weird locking doors, we see Yellow Card Man come and he glares at Jake in a really ominous way. And then he starts to walk. So Jake realizes that something is going on. Now, part of the thing that bugs me about this show is they've got some heavy-hitting character actors in it who have been in the opening titles the whole time and have absolutely nothing to do. So Kevin J. O'Connor from Deep Rising and The Mummy as Yellow Card Man has been on screen for all of like a minute and a half, and he's a series regular on this. And so I'm like, okay, we're finally going to get like him and Jake are going to have a confrontation. Nope. Jake sees him and Jake freaks out and then the guy's gone. Cherry Jones, who plays Lee Harvey Oswald's mother, has been in the opening credits all the time. She was in this episode. She has been in about 2.5 minutes of the entire series so far. And I'm like, we got Cherry Jones from Signs and a bunch of other M. Night stuff. And she's Lee Harvey Oswald's mom for 1.5 minutes and she gets a series regular credit. What are we doing here? And so that stuff's starting to bug me. But Jake has his freak out. And I'm like, there's got to be a special button to get those doors open. Or the other people on the other side of the door seeing a guy freak out can maybe open the door. But no, Jake has to smash the door. And he gets in there just in time because after the anesthesiologist thought that everything was A-okay, like I said, Final Destination, something weird went on with the equipment where death was working its design and Sadie wasn't getting any oxygen. She was only getting nitrous. So if they had gone through with it, she probably would have died, but Jake saves her at the last moment. What are you thinking when Yellow Card Man just shows up as this like figure to leer at Jake and then gone, and Jake busts in and saves Sadie from this weird coincidental fuck up that could have gone on?
Yellow Card Man could have been used much more effectively in this series, and his credit could have been justified like that. If Jake was by himself, right? Yellow Card Man and the actor who played Yellow Card Man could have shown up in every single goddamn episode and screwed with Jake's plan or screwed with Jake's idea of what he was going to do to prove that the shooter was Lee Harvey Oswald. But putting that aside, I really liked the moment where Jake breaks the glass of the double doors and somehow he comes into the operating room. The operating room isn't locked. There's nobody on the other side of the door that offers to open it for him. I really think that the actor from Justified, he kind of didn't belong in the show. He's a really good actor. He's a good character actor, but I think that he, along with a bunch of other folks, have a really thankfulest role in this series.
Yeah, especially like a principal shows up because one of his teacher friends is having surgery. That makes no sense. That doesn't happen in real life.
In concept, I liked it, but I think that the Yellow Card Man and the mystique of the Yellow Card Man has been misused. He only shows up once in a while, and like you said, he has had no direct conversations with Jake about what is going to happen, or about what's going to happen, or what's going to potentially happen if Jake keeps fucking with the past. So it's like he's a nothing burger.
Right. What I keep wanting, and like I haven't looked into this at all, so forgive me if they have done this and I just haven't noticed, is that I almost want like a Mike Flanagan type thing where if we were to rewatch the series, in the background of like 90% of the shots, we would just see Yellow Card Man out of focus somewhere hanging out, watching all this shit go down. Just like if you watch Haunting of Hill House, there's so many fucking ghosts littered throughout that are just background, that are hidden, that then it gives you these layers and intentionality of this stuff. So like when Lee Harvey Oswald's at the book depository, don't make it obvious, but maybe one of the guys sitting in there should be Yellow Card Man, and I should be able to go back and rewatch this thing, and at every turn, Yellow Card Man is in the background somewhere in a lost Bad Robot style way, where I can be like, he was there all along watching all of this shit. To what end? Like the observer, right? And maybe they didn't do it because they don't want it to be like an observer just hanging out. But part of me thinks, especially 6 episodes in, if I had been noticing this guy haunting the background, then when he showed up 2 episodes ago in Jake's apartment, it's more powerful. When he shows up now, it's more powerful because if he's been in the shadows and the background the whole time and now comes to the forefront, then I think, okay, something's ramping up or something about this is more important because this guy is finally getting a little bit more proactive.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that. I really like that Flanagan idea of having Yellow Card Man be in the background of all these scenes. I can't potentially speak to that because I haven't noticed that, but I really like that idea of this constant threat of Yellow Card Man being in the background and to bring him up to the forefront with the remaining episodes that we have left and to see if he had some nefarious plan or for him to be the microphone for him to be the microphone of the past, right? To have a conversation with Jake, right?
Right.
But that doesn't. I don't know if that's gonna happen. But if it does, it'll be at the 11th hour when all of this is done, and it won't matter anymore. But again, yeah. But again, my I have 2 issues with this show, and I number one, James Franco was a lot flatter than I remember the first time I watched this show, and the storytelling, the way that it's structured, I do not like at all. I'm like, yeah.
Yes. So the I agree. Like Franco is just phoning this one in. Like I've said previous, sometimes Franco phones it in and sometimes like he really shows up and he does the work. And this one just feels like he was there and he was just getting the lines a minute before and just saying them. As we wrap this up, and my big thing has been how stupid Jake is. And they actually justify going forward why Jake might be a complete idiot going forward. And so I love that this all goes down near the end where we see him confront the agent, George, or whatever his name is. And he says, like, you know, you're getting Harvey Oswald to do this. That's why you had him shoot the general and you're going to get him to kill Kennedy. And he finds out when he's strangling this guy like an absolute maniac in the backseat of his car that this guy has no idea what he's talking about. He's like, we have not given him any orders. The General Walker thing, you know, that was not like a test to set up this thing. He said, why would I want Kennedy to be killed when he's the only one taking on those communist assholes? that's counterproductive to what the government would want. So this is where Jake kind of realizes, okay, after he chokes this guy out, that Oswald must be acting alone. And so he decides, like, I'm gonna finally take Oswald off the board. I guess it's time to kill him because he is the guy. As he decides this, first, and this is again, this whole dynamic of what's more important, your mission or your sex life? Because he decides he's got to call Sadie and he proposes marriage over the phone. And I'm like, ugh, this is definitely a scene that we're only getting because either one of them is going to die or something horrible is going to happen. And of course, by the end of it, something has happened. And he's like, I want you to come to the future with me, marry me, let's do this. And she's like, I'll give you the answer when you get home. So of course we know he's not making it home. As soon as she says, like, when I see you, it'll be all sunshine and roses. And Jake gets his fucking ass kicked by these bookies because he's been placing bets all over town that are really fucked up bets. And Bill has been placing the same bets. And so they're like, you are cheating. You guys are in on some weird shit. So we're going to beat the fuck out of you. And then we cut to Jake in the hospital, waking up, and he doesn't remember anything. And the doctor tells Sadie that, you know, he's got head trauma and it's going to take a while for him to recuperate. And who knows how long it's going to be. And of course, now we have a ticking clock because we're a month away from the day that Kennedy gets killed. And now Dum-Dum Jake has a reason to be a dum-dum because he's concussed and he's amnesiac. And I'm like, oh my God. I don't know. I bet this plays better if you're reading the Stephen King book. It might not seem as eye-roll inducing, but the way that it's framed in this show, I'm like, give me a fucking break.
JJ and Stephen King have a relationship. It started with this show and it led to Castle Rock and it has led to other things with other companies who shall not be named at this time. But I would have really appreciated, look, this would have never happened in a million years. But I'm like, why didn't JJ do this? Correct me if I'm wrong, but he wasn't doing anything big at the time, right? Or am I missing something?
Because this aired in 2016, he would have been doing Force Awakens because it came out December 2015, so they probably were shooting at the same time, or it was post on Force Awakens, right? So I'm sure he was, even though Force Awakens came out first, he probably was neck deep in Star Wars when this was in production.
What I'm saying here is I would have preferred a much more seasoned writer, right?
Yeah.
I would have preferred like a bad robot guy, right? Right. Yeah. Have a Applebaum and Nemec do it, right? Now, I'm not saying what they would have come up with would have been better, but maybe it would have been more cohesive from a story's perspective. Like you, when Jake proposes marriage over the phone, I knew something bad was going to happen. And I did appreciate the way that the writer set that up in the beginning of the episode, because he went to the bookie to pay for the to place a bet to end up paying for Sadie's surgery. But at this point, I'm like, it's too late for this shit. Yeah. It's too fucking late. And giving us an excuse why Jake is so inept now is ridiculous. If you want to do that, do it at the beginning of the series.
Right.
That's like to justify all his moronic behavior and behavior that just doesn't make any fucking sense. But you know what? I mean, what can you do, right? There's only so much that we can ask for as fans. So I have no idea. But with that, I think this episode has come to an end. Listen, guys, if you like anything that we do here at all, you can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, at Radio 815. You can add us on there. You can send us direct messages, which I will respond to. But if you want to send us an email about this show, or tell us if you read the book, and if the book is different from the show, you can just send us an email at radio815@AOL.com. But Matt, if the folks at home want to talk to you about anything at all, where can they reach you?
I've abandoned a lot of social media, so you can just log some movies with me on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/MDC3000.
All right, guys. And as Matt has left the desert of social media, I'm quickly on my way out too. But if you would like to reach me for whatever reason, there is this app like Letterbox, but it's called TV Time. And if you want to talk to me about the movies and or TV shows that you're watching on that app, you can find me at Creek Fanatic 88. But until next time, as I say often, we'll talk back soon.
Radio 815 is a Balloonhead Productions presentation in association with Killer Newt Productions.